So the final thing I want to say with regards to all of these tools that we're talking about, and empowering your team is that all of these things are tools, right? The scoreboard is a tool. The org chart is a tool. The Digeract role description is a tool. The Mio meetings is a tool, or the where you capture the contents of the Mio meeting. The PDP, the sheet that you use, or if you let Alvanda, or if you use anything else to keep track of that, all of these are tools. And so many people will not use these tools simply because they do not see them as tools. They see them as something they've learned how to do, like a skill, like, hey, I know how to do a PDP, or I know how to do scoreboards or whatever, and I will implement them. That's different. It's like getting a hammer, saying, oh, I know how a hammer works, and so I used it a few times, and then I'll just keep it there, and I know how it works. Whenever I need it, I'll use it. But you actually need to use the hammer every single day or every single week, but you don't use the hammer anymore. So if you're not going to use the hammer, you'll literally be, hitting nails with your bare hands, or using whatever other ineffective tools, like a piece of wood or a book or something. You're literally just going to hit that nail, and it's not going to come out the exact way you want to, or it's going to be much more difficult. However, if you actually see everything we express in the book or in this video as a tool, all of these are tools. Job descriptions are tools. It's a tool to set the expectation of everyone in your company, and to then keep people on top of those expectations. Because if someone joined the company, you use the tool to set the expectation, they joined the company, they agreed to all of those expectations. 2 months later, if they fail to meet those expectations, you bring out the hammer again, you bring out the tool, and you say, hey, you said you're going to do this, but you're not doing this. What's going on? I said, well, I never actually, wanted to do that. Well, okay, but you agreed to do it. And so this was the expectation. Either you do this, or you do something that's the equivalent or better than that, right? That has the same amount or more value to our business, but this was one of the things that we said that you need to do. Many people don't see job descriptions as tools. They see them, hey, it's just a job description. I use them when I hire someone, and then I never use it again. Not true. It's a tool. Or the org chart. I define the org chart once, and then I never use it again. That's false, because you use the org chart as a tool to determine what's the next person you need to hire. Always. You don't just randomly hire people. Say, oh, I need a VA to check my mail. Okay, but is the VA the best expenditure of your time? Or do you actually need a marketing person to get you more leads? What is the actual most important hire? And the org chart answers that question. Okay, so everything we talk about are tools, and you need to understand that building a business is exactly like building a house. You need the right tools to build a house, and if you don't use those tools, then you can't expect to build a house as quickly or as effectively or as well as possible. One of those tools that we talked about earlier in the video and earlier in the book are surveys. You can use surveys to get a lot of feedback, both from clients and from people within the company. The reason why I'm bringing that up again is to, let's say, underline its importance, right? You should have regular surveys within your team, asking very specific questions of how people are feeling, giving them grades from 1 to 10. What do they feel the company could do better? What do they really like about the company? What change would they see? Would they like to see implemented? Or as many questions as you can ask them in that survey. We have a lot of questions in the book. You can find a lot of survey questions online, but basically add as many questions as you can, and do this maybe once a quarter, right? And use this as a tool, right? That's why I'm mentioning it again. Use surveys as tools all the time, because they give you the information that you need to take the right decisions in your business. Moving on from that, let's talk a little bit about something that the vast majority of people get wrong, which is promoting. Within the concept of empowering your team, sooner or later, you will want to promote individuals. Now, there are certain ways in which you should promote individuals, and certain reasons why you should promote individuals. And there are many mistakes that people make when promoting individuals that lead to bad relationships, bad results, and so on and so forth. So there are some, let's say, key traits of what we call rising stars, right? For example, a few years ago, I hired someone for clerical work. They had no experience in our industry whatsoever, but we hired them based on heart. We hired them based on who they are as a person. That person now, 3 years later, is literally the CEO of the company. In 3 years, they have been promoted 3 or 4 times to become the CEO. Why? Because they've done so much within the company. And there are 3 things I want to, let's say, point out that will help you spot rising stars within your company as well. Number 1 is the quality of their work, right? Every time they do anything, the quality of that item or that deliverable is very high. If they have a conversation with a client and you listen to the recording, the quality of that conversation is very high. If they write, let's say, content, the quality of the content is very high, etc., etc. Whatever they do, it's very high. Another thing that they do is that they deliver very quickly. They don't wait around. We have a rule basically in our companies: we don't wait, right? If you need something from someone, it is your responsibility to follow up. If you tell me 1 week later on the MEO meeting that, hey, I haven't done this because I was waiting for Michael to send me something, and I say, okay, how many times have you followed up with Michael on that thing that you needed? I say, oh, I haven't, because he knows he needs to give me that thing. You failed. You failed on that. You should have followed up with Michael day 1, day 2, day 3. You should have told me, hey, Michael isn't getting back to me with whatever it is I need, so that I can pull rank and say, Michael, what are you doing? Frank is waiting on this from you and he can't do his MEO because of it. Well, yeah, but I didn't get around it and so on. Okay, but you shouldn't have set the expectation of helping him in the first place if you don't intend to do that, because now he is failing at his job. These people deliver quickly, right? They don't wait around. They want to get stuff done, and they will do everything required to get the results that they need to get, okay? And then the third thing that these people do is they communicate effectively. Just like I gave the example earlier, you basically have Michael that's not giving Frank whatever it is he needs. So Frank follows up multiple times like, hey, Michael, I really need that. I really need that. When are you going to send that over? And if that doesn't work, they communicate with their management. They go to top management. They do whatever they need to do. They basically communicate all the time so that everyone is on the same page, expectations are set correctly, etc., etc., right? So these are the 3 things that you can do to spot rising stars within the company, or these are the 3 traits that those people will possess. If you want to, as an action step, you can do an assessment of everyone in your company and say, okay, these are the 3 traits that we have: quality, speed, and communication. Let me give a rate for, let's say I have 5 people on my team or 20 people. Let me give them, 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, how they do on all of these 3 things, right? And so you can have them in a sheet, and then you can have, these 3 traits be columns or whatever, and start giving numbers. And then you can see, okay, well, Frank is actually the guy I should promote if I need to promote anyone. But now let's go to the next steps in terms of mistakes to avoid when promoting. So I'll give you 2 examples of people we've promoted in the past, which was a big mistake. So number 1, in one of our companies, we had a salesperson that was doing very, very well. They were selling a lot. And they were also very ambitious. And we didn't have a vice president of sales. We only had salespeople. So the CEO was directly managing the salespeople. So we wanted to have someone between the CEO and the salespeople that would manage everyone. So one of these salespeople was a rising star, right? They were amazing at everything they were doing. They were very fast, very communicative, and so on. So we were thinking of promoting them, and we asked them, would you like to become the vice president of sales? I said, yes, of course. I would love that. I would love to do that. So okay, they were very excited. We were very excited. So we promoted them. Big mistake, very big mistake. Some of the mistakes we've made there. Number one, we didn't treat this promotion as a recruitment process. In the book, we recommend treating every single promotion like as if you would be hiring someone for a new role, someone you've never met. Why? Because then you have the exact same interview structure. You have the first interview where you set expectations, you filter what they will do, you ask all of the questions exactly like you wouldn't know them. Number two, on the second interview, you discuss the digger rack. You say, hey, these are the expectations that you need to have within this role. We did that for this person. The reason why it was a mistake and why we did that correctly is because we didn't have the digger rack system back then. We had a normal job description, and so those aren't the right tools to use to set expectations. Digger rack job descriptions are the right tool. So basically, we didn't do that. And then after they were hired, we couldn't keep them accountable for the actual results we were expecting from them. We were expecting sales to increase based on now we have a VP of sales, but they didn't. Guess what happened? Sales went down. Why? Because this guy was, let's say, maybe he was closing 25% of deals or something like that. So now they were spending 70% of their time doing VP level things, right? And basically closing way less deals, but way less. They're like, instead of, closing whatever, I'm making this up, I can't remember, $50,000 of new business a month, they're closing maybe $7,000 of new business, which is very painful to go from 50 grand to 7,000 or whatever it is, right? And so we're telling them, you're failing in your role because the VP of sales needs to increase sales month to month, not decrease it. And they're like, well, what do you expect? I'm not doing sales anymore. That's the reason for everything going down. But we would tell them that's not the goal. The goal is for that number to go up. And so, long story short, there's a lot of frustration that was being built there because they failed at their role, literally. And we can prove that they failed at the role. No one hires a vice president of sales in their company and expect their sales to go down. No vice president of sales goes into a company expecting that the sales of that company will be lower after they started in their new role than before. So we can factually prove that they failed, irrelevant of the excuses that we were discussing on those conversations, right? The issue now is that you can't demote someone. Because now they're going, you can if they're very reasonable and they understand that, hey, this is actually not the role for me. But in most cases, people's ego gets in the way and they do not accept being demoted. They would just find another job, and so on. So that was a big mistake. And so I urge you to not make those mistakes and to take every single person through the recruitment process. I can tell you one other example in which we've made the same mistakes. And again, we mentioned other mistakes in the book, but basically with this CTO, they're an amazing, amazing developer. As a developer, they were very, very good. And we needed a CTO because our CTO was going away because they got a founder level role in a startup and they really liked the idea and they wanted to go there. And we said, okay, fine, that's okay, that's what you want to do. And so we were hiring internally and a few people applied for the CTO role and we were having conversations and this person was literally the best developer and they seemed to be the best fit as a CTO. However, again, because we didn't conduct the interview, we didn't set the correct expectations with Digerac and so on and so forth, they ended up failing so much in the role that we ended up having issues after issues after issues on almost every single project he was managing. It was crazy how bad it was because his solution to issues on a project was that he will fix those things himself. And so he was spending so much more time working extra hours, being more of a developer and less being the manager, the mentor, the support person that the team actually needed on those projects. So again, if you implement everything we teach, promotion should be an easier thing to do, right? So what do you actually do? When you promote someone, you take them through the interview process exactly like we explained. And then when you get them on, you promote them as an interim person. So for example, in the CTO role, we would promote someone as an interim, and you prepare these people for these conversations, and you have these conversations with them and you prepare them for the role, right? So basically you say, okay, you can be the interim CTO for 3 months. And these are the metrics of success. If you hit these metrics, and we need to agree that those are the most important metrics, if we hit these metrics of success, then you will keep the role. Otherwise, you will revert back to this role, because this way you get to see if you're actually good in this role, and we get to see if we should keep you on this role or we should find someone else. Okay, so this is a very important thing that we can literally do one after another, right? In terms of all of the interviews we have with internal stakeholders. What we recommend you do in terms of promotions is to have a set system in place for promoting people. Just like you have a system in place, or you should have a system in place for recruiting new individuals, have a system in place, and this is your action step, have a system in place for making sure that those people progress in their careers in the best possible way, whilst minimizing frustrations on both ends and maximizing the output that those people are capable of bringing. Because they might think that their best role is of a CTO or a director of sales, but in actuality, what their best role is maybe is of a team lead, where they're still a developer, they're still a salesperson, but they're also responsible for a few other salespeople or a few other developers. And that's almost the same as the director, just they are still functioning in their core competence, which is, either dev or marketing or engineering or whatever it is. Okay, so that's basically it on this level.